Hello everyone, welcome back to the software testing, and today we learn about the client side validation and server side validation. Interview purpose, this question is the most IMP. Interviewer asks to you what is the client side validation and what is the server side validation. So let's get started with client side validation. What is the client side validation? What is the definition of the client side validation? And what is the use? How to identify and what kind of use in the client side validation? First of all, we understand the what is the definition of the client side validation. Client side validation is nothing but whenever the client or the end user input some wrong input into the input field or selection value, then tab key press from keyboard or click outside the field, so its field gives a error message or validation message. It's called a client side validation. The client side validation, with example with login functionality, there is a two input field like email ID and password, and there is a one button is called a submit button or login button. So first of all, user enter the invalid email ID into the input field and click outside the text box or the input field. Then it's give a error message like enter a valid email ID or enter valid email. So it's a client side validation. We learn about the server side validation. What is the server side validation and how we use server side validation in code functionality or any other functionality in a web application or mobile application for testing purpose. So server side validation is totally different from client side validation. In client side validation, we see the if user enter the wrong input and click outside or tab key press from keyboard, so it's give a validation message, so it's called a client side validation. In a server side validation, it's totally different from client side validation. So server side validation is nothing but whenever end user submit or input any wrong value into the text box or selection box, select any value, and end user pressing some button like action button like submit button, login button, next button, previous button, pressing any button, and that wrong input value request goes to the server side and server responds back to the client side, and client side we see the validation message like input value is incorrect or email ID is incorrect. That's called a server side validation. Interviewer asks question to the what is the client side validation and what is the server side validation. You give the same example like what in a login button there is a email ID, password and submit button. Whenever the user enter wrong email ID and click outside the text box and gives error message, so it's called a client side validation. And server side validation, in the same example, we use the user input wrong email ID and click on the submit button, and submit request goes to the server side, and server give a response back to the client browser. It's called a server side validation. Thank you. I hope you got the what is the client side validation, what is the server side validation. If you have any doubt about the client side validation and what is the server side validation, so please comment below in the comment section, and please like my video, share with niche friends and family, and subscribe my channel. Thank you.